Okay, so this time what I'd like to do is do a similar thing as what we did with the black and white image in saving it, a passage from it, so that we can print it to the Epson printers here on campus. So some of the steps that we did with the black and white image will be the same, but since this one is color, there's also one or two things that I also want to talk about in adjusting the image here. And so we're actually going to do those steps first. So I see the entire thing, it's not cropped to the size that I want in the end yet. So before I do that, I'm going to go to Image Adjustments, Image Adjustments, and go to Levels. And what I see is this white mountain kind of thing. It's actually called a histogram. And the white area corresponds to where the color information is on the image. And the black part is just nothing. So, and then we have 3 pointers below it. We have one over here, a dark one, kind of a middle gray, and a white one. And they correspond to the white point or the highlights, the dark point or the shadows, and the mid-range part of the image. So when I look at, and ideally I want those pointers to come up exactly as they currently are. Whether this one is right out to the edge where the mountain starts on that side, and this one is right to the edge on the right side where the mountain ends there. And this one, the middle one, kind of falls where it is. I don't want this pointer to be in here someplace or in here. And you notice as I move them, so if I move the dark point way over here, it means that all of this information to the left, going straight up from that pointer, all the information to the left is now all being turned into shadow. And by the same token, on the right-hand side, everything to the right of this is now being made white. And of course, we've got a really different kind of image here right now. And I did it to an extreme amount. We don't want that. Let's bring it back here. Now, we might say, though, that we do want an increased amount of contrast or something like that. Or we want to bring out the mid-range a bit more, which is more normal. Meaning, I think that you normally don't want to have these, the dark or the light pointer outside or further to the right of the mountain or further to the left of the mountain, nor do you want them inside and not capturing the end. Okay, so that's the ideal place for both of them. The mid-range one, however, you might want to move. And so and I'm going to move it a lot first, we can see the difference. So if I move it a lot to the left, you can see what that's doing. It's making more of the mid-range act like the white or the highlight side of things. And if I move it to the right of center, it's making more of the mid-tones darker. So we typically would never move it as much as I just did. So since I don't know exactly where I was here in the beginning, I'm going to cancel this. So we get back to the default and open it again, adjustments, levels. Okay, and I'm going to move this and the mid-range is at 1. So if I move it slightly to the right, it's making it a little darker in the mid-range. And at least on screen, I think that helps the photographic version of this image. It's increasing the contrast a little bit. But this is totally up to you, how you want that image to be. And this is how you can do it through levels. Okay, I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to show us a different way to do it. So under Image Adjust, instead of Levels, let's go to Brightness and Contrast. And in here, I'm going to bring the contrast up. They both start at zeros to the right and bring the contrast up a little bit. And what this is doing is just increasing the overall difference between dark and light shapes. It's not doing it only in the mid-range. And then brightness, of course, this is doing it in either the shadow, or if I go to the left, making it darker, or to the right to make it brighter. So if I do this, and I do it a lot, I can right here. So if I do it just a little bit, I'm increasing the highlights a little bit, as well as increasing the contrast a little bit. And I would normally say that most images benefit from between 5 and 10, some amounts of brightness and contrast. But again, it's a personal preference. It's up to you. I definitely think that more than 10 in any one direction, right or left, -10 or +10, is going to give you more of a distorted kind or special effect kind of feel, rather than making the normal version of your image the best it can be. Okay, so that's a way we can do that here. Now I'm going to cancel it and do yet a third option. So if I go to image, again to adjust, and notice that under oh, sorry, not under adjust, but directly beneath the word adjustments, there's auto tone, auto contrast, and auto color. And so this is like a default way. So if I go auto tone, notice if I just leave it there, it kind of gave it more a cooler, bluer tint, or brought the blues out. And I'm in auto color. So I did all three of those of the auto version of it. Now, in my mind, by using those, I think it still makes it a nice image, but I think it changed it from what originally had a warmer feel to it color-wise, and now it has a cooler feel to it color-wise. So I'm going to, I need to show you this. If I do Command Z, it's only going to go back one step, and Command Z again doesn't take me anywhere. So if I go to history, window, and history is where I can, since I did those all at the same time, I guess it did allow me to go back. But if you can't go back to where you want to be, open the history window and pick the spot where you want to be. And then you can just delete these other ones, and it'll delete all the layers or all the steps you did after that. So this is what the image looked like to begin with, without the auto tone, auto contrast, auto coloring. And again, my point is that at this stage of the game, the overall feel of it is warmer, and with the auto tone, auto color, and auto contrast on this image, it made it cooler. So you have three different options there, I think, to adjust the color balance on the image. It's from image adjustment, either levels or brightness and contrast. We also have curves and exposure, but those are, I think, and they're good ones, but they require a little bit more manipulation with the controls to get there. You certainly can try them out. But as we're beginning, I think brightness and contrast, or levels, or these three in combination of auto tone, contrast, and color, you can try those. And then if you don't like what you did, remember the history window. History window is where you can look up above and click on something up above and just hit the trash can to take you back to the previous state of the image. Okay, so we've got the overall color balance the way we want it. Now we need to crop it. So I picked the cropping tool. And in this case, I'm going to say that I took the picture originally much closer to the final size that I want it to be. Therefore, the amount of cropping that I do is not going to be nearly as much as I was doing on that black and white image. So it's more like this. And I think this is maybe an example of more what I would hope you would do with the camera at first. Take a picture of a slightly larger area than what you want in the end, and then crop it to that exact area here. So we've got it. I double click it. So now I've sized it. Now I need to go to Image, Size, and in here, remember, make sure that the chain link is has the lines above and below it, so these are connected. Put in the size that you want the final image to be. I'm going to say that I want the height to be 12 inches, and then the width will adjust accordingly. The resolution, I need it to be 300. And then down here, since I'm enlarging it, again, I have these three different ones. And by default, the last version that I used was this Preserve Details 2.0. And if that's the one that you want to stay with, of course, we're good to go. But we still have the option of picking the first one of these three or the last one of these three as an option. I'm going to leave it on the second one here, and then say OK. And Command 0 to see the entire image. And so now I just need to save the file. Do Save As. I'm going to call it passage number 2 as a Photoshop or PSD file. It's going to the passages folder, the one I made for the black and white one. I can see that black and white one is in there. Photoshop file. I hit save. Okay. And now I have those two passages in there, and they're in the same folder. Okay. All right. Happy cropping.